I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of February 12th, 2024. If you would like to join us for the Pledge of Allegiance, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The clerk will take the roll, please.
Councilmember Ashford.
Present.
Councilmember Haremza.
Here.
Councilmember Lamb.
Here.
Councilmember Mosherak.
Here.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Here. You have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of January 22nd. Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Support.
Councilmember Ashford and Councilmember Pemberton. Any changes? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have one presentation this evening. The clerk will read presentation number 1, please.
Flooding damage briefing, City Manager James Freed, Fire Chief Corey Nicholson, and DPW Director City Engineer Eric Witter. Everybody, don't bring them all back.
Good evening, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm here tonight to give a brief update on damage that was incurred on between January 26th and 27th and into 28th at our city canal. I want to give a brief review of this flooding incident, which actually happened very earlier on in the season than it would typically have. And then what was different, what we did to mitigate, and the damage incurred of that. So these are the photos I took while airborne over the flood, assessing the damages on the 27th. This photo was taken right around 11:30 in the morning. What's different about the flood event in the Black River this year was that the ice jam happened north of the I-94 overpass. Typically, when we have ice jams, it happens between the train trestle and 94, right around the Domtar there. That's where the ice jam normally happens. The difficult thing about where this ice jam was located, and it was actually just south of the Canal District by Riverside Boat Launch, is we cannot get an icebreaker past 94. So we have no icebreaking capabilities north of 94. Sometime after, in the late afternoon on the 27th into the 28th, the ice jam did start to move downstream a little bit past the 94 bridge. But on the start of the photos I show you were actually from where the ice jam was located north of the 94 bridge. And we did conduct ice jamming on the evening of the 27th as well. These are shows you the rising water levels in the Canal District. This photo here, I was out at this property about 45 minutes before this photo was taken, and there was about 2 feet of seawall left. So in 45 minutes, the water had risen that fast over the seawall and into people's backyards. There's another view of the flooding in the floodplain there along the Riverside Drive. Port Huron Township and Fort Gratiot Township also got flooding as well. 2 times in the 10 years of my tenure here, the head pressure in the Black River and the water level gets high enough to reverse the flow of the Black River Canal. That canal connects Lake Huron to the Black River. From Lake Huron onto the Black River, the difference in elevation is 15 inches. So it typically flows from Lake Huron to the Black River as it was originally designed as a clean out for the Black River. The one time before it reversed the flow, it was never anything this significant. I want to show you, the pictures don't do it justice. The water levels there, that is about 5 to 6 feet above the lake levels. And that's the head pressure on the Tanner Gate there. The Tanner Gate, at this point, we are beginning to raise it up. And the reason why we raise it up is when the canal backflows, it alleviates flooding in the Canal District. So opening the canal reduces flood waters and diverts them from residential areas out into the lake. And this is to prevent any further damage to homes and property. This is just how fiercely and wide the canal was reversed, the flow of the canal was going. This is probably 100 yards wide, and it was flowing like a rapid river. I had never seen it flow that way. This is aerial view of the canal discharging in reverse form out into Lake Huron. You can see the debris field there, the sand there. It's pretty remarkable just what a great swath of land that encompassed. this is what we're left with. This is a significant amount of debris that is in the canal at the Tainer Gate. You can see here these chains here. The Tainer Gate is actually hanging and has been disconnected. It's sheared off of its pins to hold it in place. And those are a photo of those pins. They've been there since 1937. And the gate typically hangs up here like a big giant half moon. It's actually flipped over 180 backwards. You can see it here, flipped over 180 below the water level. I put these photos in your packet. I'll put them online too so they're better to view. So we have engaged the Army Corps of Engineers. We've engaged Eagle. We have engineering. We've also engaged our engineering firm DLZ, which specializes in bridge and floodgates. They're going to come out and take a look at this and assess this. The issue we have right now, people have said, well, why haven't you got the debris out there? Why haven't you pulled the Tainer Gate out yet? First and foremost, the debris removal is going to be pretty significant, probably close to $100,000, I would imagine. The water's icy cold right now, so I can't put personnel in the water. So we're going to need to bring equipment in. I'm going to talk about why that becomes precarious in just a second. But if you can see the way the Tainer Gate has fallen and the way it's hanging, it's actually hanging at an angle. And it's actually doing relatively a decent job of keeping sandy material from Lake Huron entering back into the canal. The whole point of the Tainer Gate was to prevent sand from Lake Huron damming up the canal downstream, essentially just become just a big old sand pit. And so if we move this Tainer Gate out of the way before we have a plan of action in place or what we're going to do to repair it or temporarily dam it up, all that sand would drift downstream and we'd have a much larger issue to deal with in 3 to 4 months. And so we're leaving it there until the engineers can come in and say, what are our near-term options? What are the long-term options? Again, this picture doesn't show it justice, but that's the armoring we did along the Black River Canal last year. Thank God we got that project done because we probably would have lost some property and structures there. You could actually see the ice elevated on those rock formations. That's how high the water level was. So the issue we have is the erosion issues along the north and south side of Gratiot Bridge to the east. This was not like this before the canal. We also have over here, this was not like this. You see these root balls here, the roots are showing. We have risk of those trees falling over. The issue we have is we want to ensure that if we're going to bring heavy equipment, which will have to be something with a giant hook that can go down, so you have to reach down into the canal, which is a great distance, and then plus go down below grade, which is also more distance, that's going to be a very large piece of equipment. Our concern right now is to ensure that whatever equipment we bring in, it's not going to collapse the bank and fall over. That's the last thing we need is a hydro hoe or a massive piece of equipment falling into the canal. And so when we bring DLZ out, which is our engineering firm that we're going to engage on this, we want them to look at it and say, okay, what is the near term to remove the debris, that we can do it safely without further creating a much more precarious situation out there. So here's where we're at right now, and this is why I wanted to present this, is when receiving my briefings last week, if we have to do something with the superstructure, meaning repair the superstructure, repair the Tainer Gate itself, most likely we're going to have to coffer dam up the canal in some way, either on both ends to drain it and to make sure the superstructure is fine for evaluation, or repairs, or perhaps even the replacement of the Tainer Gate. We're not even sure if the gate is salvageable, or you just can't go on Amazon and buy a giant 1937 floodgate. And so if we coffer dam both sides of it, of course, you would not be able to pass through the canal. We believe there's a high probability, not inevitable, but a high probability that the canal may not be passable for the summer boating season. And so I know there's a lot of boaters here tonight. We all intend to save the canal. That's not even up for debate. We're going to make sure we get this fixed. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to put the community on notice that this is a much more serious issue than just pick the canal up and reattach it. And the reason for that is it provides people time to make alternative plans for the coming season. Now, if we can get our engineering team out there and they find some fix that we can get it fixed in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, we're going to move as fast as we possibly can to get the canal passable and open for the boating season. But as it stands now, there is a high probability. What that probability is, I don't know until the engineers get out there. But the fact that it's even possible, I wanted to put the community on notice just what we're dealing with and how significant the issue is. With that, I'll take any questions. I have with us our fire chief who was in charge of emergency command that day, We have Eric Witter, engineer, a city engineer, who was out there with us that day observing what was going on. I also have Bobby Seppo, our deputy finance director, here to answer any financial questions you have. Any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem. James, I'm just curious, let's say unfortunately the canal wasn't passable for this upcoming season. What does that do to our dredging contract that we've already made?
That's a good question. We wonder if we can actually amend some of our dredging contract now to take care of some of the debris removal and armoring that will need to be done. So we'll probably keep that contract in place, and whether it be for some dredging or maybe amending that contract to do additional work on the site, we're not sure yet.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilman
Yes,
Ashford?
so what is your timeline? I mean,
Yeah, so we hope to have DLZ on the ground this week or next week, begin assessing the situation, find out just how bad the situation is. I've talked with contractors already about doing emergency debris removal, which will require cutting up, there's whole trees out there. You can't even lift those up, so they have to be cut in pieces and brought out. We have 2 contractors that are looking at getting us numbers right now on what we can do. So I think in the near term, you'll see assessments done by those who can properly assess it, and then debris removal beginning the next week or so.
okay, and is there any other emergent problem with this other than the boats not being able to get through?
Well, I think the concern we have is we don't know the scope of like whether or not this structure is repairable or whether or not we're gonna have to build a whole new Tainer gate, right? So the Tainer gate is actually insured for about $120,000 because back when they built it, it didn't cost that much. Well, clearly to replace that Tainer gate today would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not into the 7 figures. So we don't know what that looks like. We don't know if we engage Army Corps of Engineers to help with that or Eagle to help with some emergency funding. So the issue is because we don't know the full scope of what the damage is and what the repair will be, we're kind of open-ended on what the cost is going to be.
But we know that cost is going to be
Significant.
significant.
In the words of accounting, we will call it material.
Oh, okay. And then with this piece of equipment that we want to buy, how often, I mean, is there a possibility we can rent the same kind of?
We're not looking to purchase any equipment. We're looking to engage contractors to facilitate.
Oh,
the
you're
work.
going to have the contractors
Yep.
do this, okay.
Yeah, there's firms out there that specialize in river cleaning and county drain commission cleaning who have experience doing this kind of work.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions?
James, you said 1937. Was that when it was all put in place? And I guess my question was when it was built, what was supposed to be the lifespan? So was it a combination of just extreme situation?
I'll see if
and
Witter can
time?
answer. I'll see if Witter can answer that one.
I know you weren't around
Mayor-
probably for that meeting.
Mayor, Tim, and council members, I think that's a good question, but 1937 was a long time ago, so in its history of almost 80 years, plus we
You wouldn't even know.
haven't had to experience anything like this, so there was one thing I was going to mention. I know James, I think, forwarded an email earlier, kind of a history. Originally, there was a big wooden gate west of there, closer where kind of how Brennymore dumps in, that during high levels of the Black River, it actually would shut, and that would protect the Black River water from going onto Lake Huron for various reasons. In the early 1970s, it was decided to make that permanently open, which then, obviously, I think we're learning now, maybe exposed this Tainer gate to some different conditions it wasn't originally designed for. But up until 2 weeks ago, there had been no issue. So that structure was removed back in 1989 when they redid the canal, including the train bridge. So at that point, it was deemed not necessary, and obviously 20-some years before that, it was taken out of commission. So like James mentioned, we've engaged with DLZ. A lot of what they're going to look at is obviously investigating the current conditions, but also what flows and conditions can this gate at that location see. So originally, like James mentioned, the gate was there to allow for a difference in elevation from the lake to the Black River, not the opposite like the picture showed. So it's obviously pretty evident that it was exposed to different loadings and things that it wasn't originally designed for. But from 1937, I think it's, obviously done its job, and unfortunately during this event, it was much higher than I've ever seen. I haven't, in 20-some years, not overseeing it, but I've seen pictures. But that one picture that showed the gauge with the different numbers on it, it was a foot above that, right where that trunnion or axle was where it pivoted. So it was that high when we opened that gate that Saturday morning. In which now it's probably about 5 to 6 feet less in depth at that location than it was 2 weeks ago.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, So, Eric, it's probably safe to say, even though this is a bad event of what happened, but it seems like the way you're talking, that it would give us the opportunity to make right a whole lot of things that we can bring it up to date. I wasn't even born.
I know it's very early on, but engaging with the engineering consultant, who obviously James mentions has very good expertise in this and other movable structures, they're going to evaluate it for all known conditions, including the one that we just experienced. So back in 1937, it was different. It wasn't intended to receive the reverse flow, because those other gates were in place. Where now, with those gates removed, it can receive those kind of flows, plus all the debris that came down the canal. And we suspect, when James pointed out it, the blockage occurred upstream of the canal area. So I think usually what happened is the river would flow, some of the debris come downstream, and then it would block at the train bridge. Well, a lot of that debris, I think, made it past the canal. This time, we suspect, because the canal is the only thing flowing, that all that debris actually entered the canal and flew out to Lake Huron. Eventually, it was big enough that it took it out. So we have observed debris from the canal mouth at Lake Huron downstream in front of Lakeside Beach. There's trees and everything else. So more made it out, but I think just we got that large flush of all the debris and possibly ice behind it just probably pushed on the gate and it had enough.
So we're dealing with the debris and the gate.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that we haven't had really a flooding event like this in a couple of years. And so when there's an ice jam, there's a natural taking down of trees along the way. So we haven't had a flooding issue, so there's a lot of dead trees or dying trees up from here all the way to Jetto or Croswell that finally came down, and we got the brunt of them this time.
James, is there any thought into correcting the erosion problem at the same time? So I know we've talked for several years now about the erosion on both sides. Are we looking into the possibility of a retaining wall or something on both sides of that gate to stop that?
We've asked DLZ to look at all options, and so let them tell us what's the best. I think you're definitely have to do some armoring on that on both sides of the canal. But yeah, we'll let DLZ, we want to look at all the options. What is a long-term fix?
And then I assume you're already putting together a plan on, though we don't know the dollar amount, how are we going to pay for it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess a
On a
comment on,
Powerball ticket, so we're good.
I didn't ask you what it was. I'm just making sure that we're on top of that. I know it's going to be something significant that we haven't planned for.
Well, I also think that we just don't know if the size and scope of this is. Remember, this is an asset that's shared by 3 different municipalities. And so that's something we'll probably keep in the back of our hand as well.
And they are also being communicated with also?
Yes, I briefed them at the same time I briefed you.
Okay. And then to her cost questions, and you think about, we don't know what it is now, but I was thinking about the fund balance. What does this do to that?
Yep.
And I know you're not intelligently ready to answer anything like that or to that. You're a finance person over there. So I'm going to respect that. But we already know where our fund balance is right now. So you could deal with that. I want to hear you talk.
Good evening,
Okay.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members.
Yeah.
Basically what James says, we don't know
Okay.
really what's going on with it yet. It is insured for around $120,000, and we've been in communication with our insurance company, and we'll continue to,
Okay.
and we'll figure it out.
Okay, well, you said something. We already know where we set as our fund balance, and you just said we got insurance, and so we're working
We
with
do.
that, and all that working together, maybe we could, have
And like I
breathing
said,
room.
emergency management funds, if they're, we're investigating all of those options. So,
Oh, okay. Thank you.
thank you.
and I guess to the point, that's what I was thinking as well. I know some of the surrounding areas helped with the dredging when we do get to that number, to have those discussions and how, unfortunate this whole situation is, but maybe it will come with other solutions that will be more long-term fix. With the technology, maybe it's different. I mean, the Mother Nature is what it is, but maybe it will have some better options on
I
it.
spoke with the township supervisors this afternoon. I had a meeting with both of them, another meeting about something else. But I did tell them I've offered that I will come and brief the township boards, the same presentation you're getting here. We'll all go to the township board as well and take their questions as well, because I believe there's about 300 parcels along the waterways there that are broken up between 3 jurisdictions. And so it's really why, there's a lot of people here tonight. I told we don't want to spend 2 hours of public comment on Save the Canal. So we are going to save the canal. That's going to happen. And as we get more information, we're going to continue these briefings to council so that community understands what did the engineers find out, what are the possible fixes along the way. And so this is not just to be one conversation we're going to have, and there's a lot of interested parties here tonight. For the next several weeks and months, you're going to be getting briefings from us on what we're going to do, what the plan of action as that materializes and takes shapes.
And so there's no safety factors in it like it is right now until.
Well, the most immediate safety concern is small vessels on the water. They don't have an exit strategy should a storm kick up. I've been out on Lake Huron, as many of you have, when rough weather just automatically comes in, and it gets pretty spooky. And for a lot of vessels, they can't make it down the St. Clair River. And so the real current health and safety issue I have is if I don't get this fixed, before summer, people have to be very extra vigilant on the waterways because the St. Clair River almost is unpassable for smaller vessels on some days.
Okay. Yeah, they needed to know that.
Yep.
Anything further? Thank you. Now is the time for public comment. If anyone in the audience wishes to address City Council on any agenda item or any matter under the city's jurisdiction, now is the time to do so. You have 4 minutes. Please start by stating your name and address for the record.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council, my name is Scott Farquhar. I live at 1039 Water Street. Many of you know, and I'll throw it out there because it's kind of part of what I wanted to say. On Facebook, I'm the self-proclaimed mayor of Black River. Through all of that flooding, I spent many hours on Saturday when they dredged. I was invited by James to go out onto the, or not when they dredged, I'm sorry, when the ice broke to go out. I turned him down because it was my anniversary, and then I found out that the ice was starting to break up, and I didn't go out to dinner that night with my wife, so. I do take it very, very serious. And not only for boating, but I love our town. I was born and raised here. My father was a city employee, 18 years old till he passed away at 43 years old. He was in the engineering division. I cuss him out daily at the 6 feet in front of my house because one of his last jobs in engineering was designing Water Street and taking away my front yard. But I wanted to thank James for all the information that you feed to me, that I put out to the people. I don't let people know that on Facebook for the simple reason why he doesn't need the phone calls. I try and buffer those phone calls. James and I did a little presentation of our own last week at the canal, and on Facebook I had over 5,000 people look at it and compliment. I also like to thank him for what he did during the time of the flood. He was out there contacting me. The fire department was out there. Great job. DPW, great job. And also the citizens of Port Huron. There were people out there filling sandbags for those people along the canals that had no effect on it. They didn't live anywhere near the canals. The other thing that James didn't mention, and it's a small concern, but there's nothing we can do about it, not only with the canal being plugged all year, boaters can't use it. It wasn't designed for boaters. Let's be honest. I use it where I live now. I don't use it as much, but the only other concern is going to be the cleanliness of Black River. You know, when these guys come for the 100th year of Mackinac race, and they've got their $200,000 sailboats, and they sit there for 3 days and look like they've been sitting there all summer because the water's so dirty. And it doesn't take long, but there's nothing we can do about it. Lastly, I wanted to bring up, well, it's fresh in everybody's mind, I am a member and a past Commodore of Black River Boat Club, which is located out in the township, just past Baker's Field there. We started something back in the 80s, the city of Port Huron did it, or I don't know who did it. I remember it as a kid doing it. There was always a Black River cleanup. And 3 years ago, we brought that back as a boat club to organize it. And unfortunately, we have 4 or 5 boats show up, and it's open to the public. Our tentative date for that is May 18th this year, which is the first Saturday after Mother's Day. Makeup date would be on the Sunday. The Port Huron Township actually has their DPW out at Bakersfield, and understanding funding, Port Huron, the city can't do that, but James has always said and been with, it's in charge of the boat ramps. If stuff gets pulled up in Port Huron, we're going to clean it up on Monday. It's fine. But I wanted to let everyone know that date, for anybody, you don't have to have a boat. We need people on land. We need people jump in boats. They meet in the morning at the boat club, which is right at the end of Strawberry Lane, just past Bakersfield. And it's just our way to do something for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the mayor of Black River and the Lake Huron Canal for that. This piggybacks on his information. Port Huron Boaters is on Facebook also. There's 3,400 people that.
Can you state your name and address?
Yes, Mark Watson, Military Street, Port Huron. So Port Huron Boaters, it is a boating city. I looked up a couple things today just because I wanted a few numbers. Port Huron has 5,120 acres of land. On top of that, they have 3,544 acres of waterways just in the city of Port Huron, according to the Port Huron website. That is almost 2/3 of just what we have in land, we have in water. So and everybody knows water is sometimes more expensive to take care of than land, depending on what you're doing on it. So I'd like to commend the council for this effort to continue the waterways, because they kind of get overlooked that they're automatically taken care of, but it's a lot of work to do this. And Port Huron's been doing it for 150 years, and they take a lot of care of it. The other thing, of course, the Island Loop is Michigan advertised as a kayak trail, goes through the canal. The state advertises these things. I don't think a lot of us realize the visitors that come here because of certain waterways, because they don't really tell everybody why they're here. They're here just like we are, doing the things on the waterway. And then the 1989 canal restoration, I remember that. I was in high school, and that canal used to be a mess. And we thanked that group 30 some years ago for doing it. And if we have to do things like this every 30 years or 80 years, I think it should be expected for this type of operation. And I have a Port Huron Boaters wristband for everybody, so I'll stop by.
Thank you.
I'm not going to start till James Freed closes his laptop. I'm dead serious. I have questions for him, and he ignores everybody, and it's incredibly rude when people take time out of their night to come down here.
Julian, start with your name and address, please, and you've technically started as soon as you start talking, so they haven't started the clock, but they are now.
I start with my name and address, and I've stated I'm not going to start until he closes his laptop, and I will wait here for 3.5 minutes. He wants to meet with the people. He's got these coffee shop meetings coming on, you know. Are you going to pay attention tonight?
You tell me what.
Y'all should have heard when he said it was harder for white-collar workers to admit their alcoholism than blue-collar workers, especially hard for white-collar workers. That was a few meetings ago. He does think he's better than us. To your credit, Jeff, you do pay attention when your laptop's open. You guys pledged allegiance to a flag that started with protests just like this. Everybody here can stand up here for 4 minutes and force him to close his laptop.
Julian, I remind you, you need to address the council only, please.
He needs to close his laptop. Your entire job is to police his behavior. Make him close his laptop. Your job is also to listen to the people of Port Huron.
I'm listening.
Raise your hand if you want James Freed to close his laptop. Is that not enough? Are you guys fine with him ignoring you guys?
That's like disrupting the meeting. You know, why don't you, it's so simple. You have the agenda on your laptop. He has an agenda up.
We all have copies of the agenda.
I know it, and he has two on his laptop.
You guys did get my paperwork to run for city council this year
Okay.
because you guys are impotent in dealing with the biggest problem in Port Huron. Councilmember Lamb, Archibald, Bongerat, your seats are up this year. I would strongly encourage you not to run for re-election. Because I was this close to leaving town until he had to sucker punch us. So now I'm committing to 4 years whether I get a seat or not. So should you win re-election, you're still going to get 4 more years of me. Well, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Hi, my name is Mark Jones, native Port Huron resident over on Garfield Street. Grew up on Walnut. My dad was a longtime City of Port Huron employee. He's retired. Mom and him moved up north. Dad passed away about 18 years ago. Mom stayed up there. She's blind now. She has macular degeneration. She also has glaucoma in both eyes. She doesn't hear very well either. And 3.5 years ago, it became obvious that she was no longer able to live alone. My dad asked me, while he was still living, if I would take care of my mother when the time came. And I told him I would. And the time came, and it was pretty blatantly obvious. I contacted the company that I worked for, Logent Research here in Port Huron, and I took the Family Medical Leave Act to provide the care for my mother. And a couple of years ago, the City of Port Huron sent me a letter from their Code Enforcement Division telling me that my property had been abandoned or vacant or whatever. Hey, listen, you know, my mom and dad moved up north, got a beautiful pad on the lake, you know. We love Port Huron. Mom comes back 5-6 times a year with me because I love Port Huron too. This is my home. Went to graduate school, all my research, all my files, all my data, everything is in my home in Port Huron. Everything. Port Huron has been real good to me. Went to college here, I went to Wayne State. I worked here. I'm retired now. I don't meet any of the guidelines for your code. This is my home and it always has been. The house is in my mother's name. I got sued so my wife wouldn't have to live homeless. I put the house in her name and my mother's name. My wife divorced me, she put the house in my mother's name. It's in my mother's name now. It's on one of those special deeds, you know, because you can't have one with a quick claim if, you know, until you die in Michigan anyways. That's the law. They call them, oh my goodness. Excuse me. It is, it's an enhanced life estate deed. So Mom dies, it goes back to me. We're just gonna keep it like that. That's my mother's choice. I sent a $50 registration fee to the city of Port Huron to register my home like I was gonna sell it or fix it or something. I don't know, man. I pay all my utility bills, all my taxes. My yard is maintained beautifully year-round, okay? I live there. I'm gone a lot, but I live there. And when I go back to work again, I'll be working again, but I'll still be on the road because I'm a professional musician as well. So please, I'm here to beg you guys to reconsider the judicial system. And honest to God, I didn't get any notice about any judicial process to determine if my house was vacant or not. You know, I don't know. But really, I live there, and I'm here to beg you guys to not charge me $1,000 a year so you can monitor my house and the $50 registration fee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And how will I find out?
We'll connect you with David. Thank you.
Address?
Yeah, tell me your name.
My name is Evan Frankowiak. I live in Goodles. I am from Avoca Troop 141. I am here today because I am a Life Scout working on my Eagle project. The Eagle project requirements are that it is a community-based project. It will be funded by donations. I am looking for any type of work you may need done within the community. I have experience with construction. I can leave my name and number in case anything comes to mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does he get a badge? Okay, yes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Craig Kloss. I'm from 3874 Lowton Drive in Fort Gratiot. A couple questions regarding the canal. We know it affects a lot of the citizens, both Port Huron Township, Fort Gratiot Township, the city of Port Huron as well. As a community outreach, does the city allow volunteers? As we know, the financial funding is crucial, right? We know this is a big project. Volunteers, are there construction companies that may want to volunteer their time, their equipment as well? Is that something that you've looked at? Is there federal funding on top of state funding? I'm sure there's a lot of the citizens that are wondering some of that same information. So those are just a couple quick questions that I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address council this evening?
Good evening, Mayor, City Manager, City Council members. My name's Ken Harris, live at 1521 Wells Street in Port Huron. I want to talk about a few things tonight. First off, I kind of go back and we're talking about historic moments. How many people on this council know that in 1889 we passed a sidewalk ordinance? Yet today, as we basically under the consent agenda, today we're going to adopt a resolution that's going to move our sidewalk work into and that has to do with community block grant funding. And if anybody really knows, the last 2 years we've taken community grant money that was assigned for sidewalks and we've used it for other uses. I think it's time to basically look back at the 1889 ordinance and put the money where it belongs with in the sidewalks. You know, I walk a lot in the neighborhoods and stuff, but it's basically for my health. I've got a lot of people that live in our neighborhood that basically that's their only mode of transportation. And if we fail to maintain that, we're not being a good community to ourselves. Another notice about history right here. I don't know how many knows it today, but my dear wife brought to my attention. You know that 75 years ago today, the previous city hall burned down on Huron Avenue. February 12th, 1949, another historic date. And one thing I want to talk about on the basically resolution number 2 tonight, you know, we're talking about $11,000, but we're talking about the seed and soil program. I've done some research and stuff, and there's not a lot of financial information with this group. And I think before we spend $11,000 on this American Rescue Fund, I think we have to determine if this vendor is financially secure enough that we get what we paid for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address council this evening?
Curtis Carl, Port Huron Township. Be better if you guys are a little bit more transparent. It goes a long way with trust with the community. The coffee dates with James Freed, great idea. But what isn't a great idea is saying that you're going to have one at an establishment and not having permission to go to that establishment. In the Times-Herald, after you were asked why you moved the venue from McCormick's to the community center, you stated that you needed more capacity and you were looking for a place within walking distance for many neighbors and for the Port Huron South End. Well, on Facebook, Mr. McCormick put that you did not contact him at all to have that at McCormick's. Granted, I'd much rather you had it at McCormick's because I'd rather do cocktails than coffee, but we didn't have that chance. I think it's pretty ballsy to just, you know, make that a spot that you're going to do something, then he has to make comments on Facebook, and then you obviously changed it for that reason. But being transparent is telling the truth, and when the Times-Herald reported that or asked you, you should have told the truth, or whatever. We would like more answers about Josh. You guys just sit there every week, and there's nothing on the agenda about Josh. What are you guys doing, or what have you done to stop the roads from reopening? Are they going to open on pub crawl? That's the rumor. We're not sure. We're all watching and waiting. We're all waiting to protest. Please speak up and answer those questions. It would be great. We want to hear more. The way that city government works, it's very slow, and your presentation on the canal would prove that out, because we don't plan on the canal being open this summer. It's that's definitely covers your ass on that one. Won't have to dig it out, and then maybe you could look for a long-term solution to that canal and how the sand has to get dug out 2, 3, 4, 5 times a year. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants to talk about it. You know, the homeowners around it don't want to have a nice big wall that goes out there and works like the Lexington Harbor. But hey, in my opinion, I think that would eventually it would pay for itself. But what's my opinion worth? Might not be anything here. Do better. You know, occasionally, you know, you guys are paying attention to me and everything, but that man wanted to be listened to, and if you're not going to pay attention to him and you're going to look down, it's kind of insulting. I don't know. Don't have much more. Just want to see you guys get better. You know, my tax dollars come here because I work in the city, so I do have some stuff invested. You know, I was born in Port Huron, raised in Marysville, but that doesn't matter. I just want to see you guys get better, and I don't know, it seems like we're going backwards, not forward. Justice for Josh, please.
Kathleen McCready, 414 14th Street. Just real briefly, I do go along with the Justice for Josh, but there was also Mackenzie that worked at Kroger's that was hit and subsequently died, apparently at 20th and Court. I have a security camera on my house, and I don't know the exact circumstances of what happened with Mackenzie, but I do have to say, I appreciate what the police do, but we do, one of the corners I can get from my camera, people running the stop sign, people going too fast down the street. I understand everybody's busy, but we do need more boots on the street, more police patrol to keep folks going to a reasonable speed through the residential neighborhoods. I also want to say, well, I guess I probably shouldn't say anything about Mr. Ruck, but I look forward to getting that cleaned up. I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address council this evening?
My name is Sandy Schultz. I'm Josh Conant's mother, and I owe it to my son to publicly say that I'm sitting in the audience waiting for answers too. So I just wanted to come up here and publicly say I'm in the audience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Heather Fagan. I live on Pine Street, Port Huron. I'm the president of Seed and Soul Society, and I just want to come up here just to publicly say that if anybody has any questions regarding what our finances have looked like, what kind of money that we've asked for in the past, this is the first time that we have ever reached out to City Council for money, period. Never has there ever been a time that we have asked you guys for anything and received anything. All of our funding up until now has been private. And we are currently in partnership with Port Huron Housing Commission to put raised beds into all of their housing projects. So we're really excited to get in there. I didn't really plan on coming up here to speak today, but it sounds like there are people in the audience who want some kind of transparency about who we are. And if anyone has any questions, then I'm more than happy to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address City Council this evening? Seeing no one, I declare public comment period closed. We'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, before you move any further, I would like number 3 taken off the consent agenda.
Number 3. Anything else? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Councilmember Pemberton and Councilmember Ashford. Clerk will take the vote.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Huron?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald?
Yes. Items under the consent agenda include receive and file notification from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission that an application has been received from Blue Water Co-Packing LLC for a new microbrewer license and winemaker license located at 2723 Connor Street. Authorizing the submission of a special liquor license application to the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs Liquor Control Commission for the City of Port Huron's Rock on the Rivers event on Thursday evenings during the month of August at Kiefer Park and recommending the license be issued. We will move to from the city manager.
Accepting the bid from Z Contractors Incorporated in the amount of $616,733.35 for the rehabilitation of the approach spans of the 7th Street Bridge.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
Councilman Ashford and Councilmember Lamb. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor and Council, you have the memo from engineering on the reason for the project. This was a budget item in a planned capital expenditure. We did vet the contractor, Z Contractors, and they have experience and do good work.
Anyone on council have any questions?
No, I just see it's from the street fund, and he answered my question.
Thank you. The clerk will take the vote, please.
Councilmember Haremza.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak.
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Yes. From the city manager, number 2, please.
Accepting the bid from AIS Construction Equipment Corporation in the amount of $236,033.38 for the purchase of a new Deere Model 544P high lift wheel loader for use by the Streets Division in accordance with the State of Michigan My Deal purchasing program.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Lamb,
Support.
second. Councilmember Mosrak. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor and Council, this is a planned expenditure. The current loader is 27 years old. In their bid as well, they also did give us a trade-in value of $19,000 for the old loader, so they will be taking that, which is probably better than what we got at an auction.
Thank you. Clerk will take the vote, please.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak.
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Yes. We'll move to resolutions.
Authorizing 17 payments.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Support.
Councilmember Mosrak and Councilmember Pemberton. Any discussion? Clerk will take the vote. The vote, please.
Councilmember Mosrak.
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Yes. Resolution number 2.
Approving the allocation of American Rescue Plan funding to Seed and Soul in the amount of $11,000 for the purpose of providing for monthly food giveaways, installation of 8 additional garden boxes at 4 different locations throughout the city, community space rental cost, and garden supplies.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilman, I'm sorry. That all went so quick. Okay, Councilmember Lamb. And was that Mosrak? Sorry?
We all had some kind
All 3 of you?
It's good.
She's got it. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor and Council, this is a proposal that you received, I think, several weeks ago. I sent it out to you all. Seed and Soul has been doing incredible work within our city. Their partnership with the Housing Commission to bring food and fresh produce to where people live and where the need is, along with the food giveaways. This dovetails into the ARP guidelines and is exactly the kind of project that the ARP guidelines ask us to put forward. The cost, given the amount of money we have, is not that amount, and so far I haven't heard any concerns or not, but they're a great organization. I have vetted them with their leadership structure, met with them on numerous occasions, and so they're fully capable of executing this proposal.
Thank you, James. Any discussion from council? The clerk will take the vote.
Councilmember Pemberton.
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford.
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza.
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb.
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Yes. Resolution number 3.
Approving the scheduling of a public hearing for February 26, 2024, to receive comments on the general needs in community development, housing, and special services utilizing CDBG and home funds, and scheduling a second public hearing for March 25, 2024, to hear comments on the proposed 2024 annual action plan.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Ashford
Support?
and Councilmember Lamb. Discussion?
Yes, discussion. During a public hearing, I know we had that issue about did we remove the sidewalk financing, but I know we did something, and so could you speak to that?
Yeah, in fact, Jasmine, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, because I know we had flipped it, and it was an explanation there for that, and I wanted to make sure it was voiced.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. So the money was moved in October of 2022 because we did not spend the funding and it was at risk of potential recapture. It was roughly, I believe, $75,000 for sidewalks.
Okay.
It was old money. We couldn't spend it. I met with Eric. We sat down and went through the cost of replacing flags of sidewalks in Old Town neighborhood. Because it's federal funding, we have to pay Davis-Bacon wages, which raises the cost 30% off the bat because those wage rates are considerably higher. Normally, it's union wage rates. So we decided not to do sidewalks because we couldn't get much done, not even a whole block. So at that point, rather than let the money sit and potentially be recaptured, money was moved into housing rehabilitation. So what we did to address sidewalks is we expanded housing rehabilitation to include sidewalks. So when people apply for housing rehab, sidewalks are now an eligible cost where they weren't before.
Okay, so you made it a one-stop deal with the holistic to get more for it and include the sidewalk.
Yes, so that is why the funding was moved previously.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Madam Mayor and Council, I'd also like to congratulate Jasmine on her promotion to Deputy Director of Planning and Community Development.
Any other questions from council? Clerk will take the vote, please.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosrak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald.
Yes, we will move to ordinances.
First reading, an ordinance to amend Chapter 16, Community Development, Article 4, Housing Development for Low-Income Persons of the Port Huron Code of Ordinances to provide for a service charge in lieu of taxes for a housing project for low-income persons and families known as Northport Village to be financed with mortgage loan pursuant to the provisions of the State Housing Development Authority Act of 1966.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Councilmember Ashford
Support.
and Councilmember Pemberton. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor and Council, before they get started here, we have the developer who is purchasing the property. Northport Towers, I walk by there on my 6:30 a.m. walks, and I walk by this weekend. The amount of people who live there call that home. It's very important to those folks. Workforce housing and affordable housing is something that is at risk in our community. We've lost 400 units of affordable housing in the city in the last 24 months. And so this is a critically important issue. As we know, Northport Towers is an older building. It's an aging facility, both with the townhomes around it and the structure itself. This ordinance adjustment and the plan that we put forth right now will be a more than $7 million investment to rehab and reassess those structures, and I'll let you guys get started. But it's a very exciting project.
Sure. Mayor Pro Tem and council members, thank you for the invitation. I'm Scott Fry with Jonathan Rose Companies, based out of our Cleveland, Ohio office, and I lead much of our tax-exempt bond syndication work in the Midwest, and I'm here to speak about Northport Village. Northport is a 250-unit affordable housing community located on Craft Road, constructed in 1981. All units are currently affordable under a, we call it a Section 8 HAP contract, which provides subsidy to the residents so that they pay no more than 30% of their income and rent. Since 2017, the property has been owned by Rose Affordable Housing Preservation Fund 4, which Rose manages on behalf of institutional impact investors who share our mission of preserving affordable housing. This is a capital source that works well as a preservation tool, but it has a finite timeline, and it's not always able to fund the deep rehabilitations that properties begin to demand with age. And additionally, even these mission-minded investors eventually have to exit their investments, necessitating a sale of the property, and the fund is now approaching the end of its life cycle. In an effort to continue our mission at Northport and extend the property's lifespan as affordable housing, Rose has agreed to purchase the property from our investors and form a new tax credit partnership which would produce the capital needed to fund a renovation. So we're working with the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, or MSHDA, to obtain an allocation of federal 4% tax credits and tax-exempt bonds. We're also working with FHA to obtain a new mortgage. Rose will execute a 20-year renewal of the Section 8 HAP contract, ensuring that the rental subsidy for the residents continues. And we would also execute a 30-year use agreement, which formally deed restricts the affordability at the property for the long term. As Mr. Freed alluded, we have anticipated total construction costs approaching $8 million. which are planned to include roof replacement, mechanical upgrades to the plumbing, heating, and fire suppression systems, new heating and domestic hot water boilers, new high-efficiency furnaces and condensing units, facade restoration work. 5% of the units would be reconfigured to meet current accessibility standards. The units themselves would all receive new cabinets and vanities, quartz countertops, LVP flooring, new energy-efficient appliances, plumbing and lighting fixtures. The site will also receive extensive work to the parking lots and sidewalks, and we've also planned to upgrade all the community areas. So it's a really comprehensive scope of work that I think will give new life to Northport, but also requires us to leverage all of the available sources of funds, which brings me to the request for a payment in lieu of taxes. Interest rates, we all know, have shot up over the past year, along with insurance premiums, which are now 3 to 4 times what they were 4 years ago. Construction costs, general property operating expenses remain elevated, so the pilot would be critical to generating the amount of funds that we would need for the renovation. A pilot would also provide tax certainty to help ensure the long-term operational viability of the project after the renovation. This type of community support has been key to facilitating similar projects in Michigan, such as Village Center and Bowen Place in Detroit, Burton Place outside of Flint, among others. The requested pilot at Northport would be 4% of shelter rents to give this project the greatest chance of succeeding. I'd like to thank you all for your consideration of our application and the invitation to speak with you tonight. I'm excited for the potential of the project and the prospect of solidifying Northport as quality affordable housing for the residents of Port Huron for the next 30 years. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone on council have any questions?
Mayor Pro Tem, thanks for being here and explaining tonight. I'm just curious, during construction renovations, will any of the residents be displaced or moved out, or is this something they can all stay in their places? And
thanks for the question. What we've been doing is it's a hybrid tenant in place relocation. So the strategy is to build some vacancy in the months leading up to the construction. We would renovate those units first, and the residents would move into those units temporarily. They'd be fully renovated, fully furnished, and then they would return to their original units after their unit is done.
Great, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Councilmember Ashford.
So your renovation is going to take place in phases? Is that what you're saying?
It would be phases of about 10 units at a time over the course of a year.
Okay. And then I watch a lot of HGTV. So you just flipping the whole, so you're flipping the whole place, the entire structure there?
It's building envelope work, mechanicals, resident facing upgrades, HVAC, things that the residents will see and feel, but also things that'll carry the physical plant of the building forward.
Okay, are you sure about it's not going to be any extra money on their behalf? I mean,
in terms of rent,
some hidden costs can come from somewhere. Is there a possibility for that?
In terms of construction or
Both.
rent to the residents?
Both.
So we'd carry a 10% construction contingency, which in this case would be near $1 million. So I think that we're pretty well. We've also run the property for about 40 years now.
Okay.
So I think we've vetted the project with our architect and engineers, and we've got a pretty good handle on what's needed.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of used to it because we did it there. It's like one size don't fit all. I just want to make sure that they're covered. And I think most of those residents are seniors. Did I have that right? Seniors up here?
Yes, in the tower.
I just want to make sure that they're taken care of in terms of, not being hit from behind. If you should run into anything. As the developer, we're the guarantor of the project. Okay. Full stop. Yeah. Okay. No. And we certainly, I as one of the council members, I appreciate that investment that you're doing because it is sorely needed here in the city of Port Huron. So anything you can do to make that grand difference, I'm just glad you choose Port Huron to do it. So thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. The clerk will take the vote, please.
Councilmember Haremza?
Yes.
Councilmember Lamb?
Yes.
Councilmember Mosherak?
Yes.
Councilmember Pemberton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ashford?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Archibald?
Yes. That concludes our agenda for this evening. Does anyone on council have any announcements?
I don't have any announcements, but I do, we had a gentleman come up and asked about, you better quit typing, I'm talking.
Yep.
We had a gentleman come up and wanted to know if, about the boat situation, and if when we hire contractors and everything, if, you know, if they're willing to help, reach out and volunteer.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
any way.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a contractor or a firm who wants to volunteer some equipment and time, reach out to me and I will more than happy take that offer.
Yeah, that always helped to have that ownership in there and doing that. And so glad that he came forth. You know, we always want to look at, you know, what others can do for you, but when we can do it together and work together for our community, it helps a whole lot. Send a great big message. And then also, could you ask the Corporation Council, do the City Council have any authority in closing the Roach Bar?
Counselor.
Good evening. I know this question has come up before, and some of you may recall that we had an issue with what was called, I think, the Military Street Cafe a number of years ago. Really, the authority to close a bar that's governed by the Liquor Control Commission is within the jurisdiction of the Liquor Control Commission, not the city. What the city can do is they can object to a renewal of a license. But if you're going to do that, you have to have a hearing here before City Council, and you have to hear, you know, give the bar owner a chance to have his say, and then you have to have a reason to object. And so if you go down that process, then your objection would go to the Liquor Control Commission, who has the jurisdiction to decide whether or not they want to uphold your objection.
So either way.
So with the Military Street Cafe, if you remember, what happened there is there was a lengthy pattern of police calls. The bar owner had refused to cooperate with the city. They hadn't paid, I believe, their taxes. There were several issues at once. We objected. We had the owner of the bar have an opportunity to come before council, say their piece, and then we objected. When we objected, our objection is just to the renewal. And what happens is if we object to the renewal and that objection is upheld, then the license goes into escrow at some point in time, then can be brought back out if there's a plan of correction, is usually what happens. So in the case of the Military Street Cafe, we objected to the renewal, wanting them to do something more to address the issues they had with their bar. And when that happened, the Liquor Control Commission said, well, we don't think we should just put it in escrow. We think we should just take the license completely, and they did so. So that was their choice and their decision, but that's how it works.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shouty. So case in point is the liquor control is a key here.
Yeah, the Liquor Control Commission is the one that makes the decision. They have jurisdiction over licensed liquor establishments, not us.
Okay.
We just have the ability as a municipality to basically object. And then whether they agree or not, that's their choice, not ours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
As a follow-up to that, before you sit down, anybody else before I jump in? As a follow-up to that, if it's not up for renewal, then we don't have that opportunity to object. Can we do that at any other time? And then the second part of that is, can the liquor control just revoke it without it ever coming before us?
They could, yes. They do that all the time where there's complaints that are made. They investigate that. They have their own team of investigators who look into issues, and then make decisions along those lines completely independent of any objection we may raise.
So we could, or any citizen, anyone could file that complaint to get them to look into it if it hasn't already been done.
Yes, correct.
And we have no, we can't object to their license unless they're up for renewal. Is that correct?
That's my understanding of the only time. So if somebody is applying for an initial license, then we have the right to object at that time, and then on every renewal afterwards, you have a chance. And in fact, we generally do, just based upon unpaid taxes. And then usually those get resolved. But even there, I mean, the Liquor Control Commission made it very clear to me in the Military Street Cafe that we don't have the say, they have the say, not us.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and Council, I will add that I have been advised that a liquor control investigation was underway. I don't know if it's complete or where it's at. It's independent of us.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
I just have one more thing.
Yes.
You know, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot or anything, but, and if I am, it's my heart is speaking right now. Ms. Schultz got up here, and she's been here ever since, you know, that unfortunate thing with it, you know, instead of grieving, she was sitting in here in our council chambers. And I don't want her to think, her or her family, that, you know, that they haven't been heard, because we do hear her. We do hear you. And certainly I can't say how everybody else feel, but you just think of your kids, you know, they're at home and they're in bed, and that happened. And I know at some point, you know, with God, everything is going to be all right. But what I like to ask Corporation Counsel, we did get the notice that the investigation was over with. So at what point is this open to the family? Did you have any tips on that? Or
No, I do not know when the state police will make that available. I mean, they have the right to withhold that if they think somehow it may interfere with a law enforcement proceeding or in a court proceeding. So they have the right to keep that and not release it to us. If they give it to us, then obviously we have the ability at that point in time to do something with it, but we don't. Okay. As my understanding is, we have not seen it yet. It has not been made available to us. We recused ourselves from the whole investigation and took a step back and let the state police do that. And so we've kind of been out of the picture on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, at least that's something, and I appreciate that. It's just that, you know, when we, you know, people come to the podium, oftentimes, you know, we sit here like, you know, like SOS, like, you know, we ain't stuck on stupid. I mean, there's something, got to be something out there, something's happening somewhere. But what people want to know is it what you know. And if you don't know it, you just don't know. So you got to make them know that you don't know it, and where we can go, what links do we have that we can reach out to that's going to make a difference. So I don't want her to sit there and think that, you know, we do, but we got to get to you. We can influence something, you know.
Yeah, and
we're advocating. We're advocates. We can do that, but we can't make it happen. But when it does, we can have that kind of energy to try to bring it to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I have personally recused myself from the process.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
okay.
Because of my past relationship with the family. So.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Well.
Thank you for that, Anita. I had planned to say something along that lines, and I want you and the family to know, I will speak for all of us, because I know every one of us, our heart breaks for you. It was a very tragic incident. Rest assured, we're not sitting up here not giving answers because we don't want to give you answers. We don't have any. You know more about all of this than any one of us sitting up here. This investigation was turned over to MSP. We read it in the newspaper. It's now been sent to the Attorney General of Michigan. I didn't see a single video. I have no idea where the investigation has gone and what they have done. If I did, if I had answers, I promise you I would give them. We don't, and that's okay. I encourage you to keep coming. That's not the point of the conversation. Like Anita, I want you to know we're not sitting up here not hearing you, and we're not just not responding to you. We don't have any answers at this point. I wish we did. I wish you did.
I'm not only hearing her, I feel her.
I do too,
I feel her.
very much so. Anyone else?
I just want to make one quick comment about another public comment scenario tonight. I want to thank Mr. Freed for not closing his laptop, and I'll explain why. One, I can see Mr. Freed's laptop from here, and I watch him get me answers multiple times during this meeting as people bring things up. It's no different than anyone else having an iPad up here. And more importantly, Mr. Freed's an administrator. It's been said multiple times that he's our employee, and that the reality is this meeting is not a time for personal vendettas against Mr. Freed, or theatrics under the guise of protest.
Yes, it is. It's freedom of speech, man. Read
Julian?
the Constitution, you
Sir.
We do not engage with council outside of public comment,
So-
please.
But he's engaging with me outside of it.
He is not speaking to you directly.
Sure he's not.
So,
Please.
for those of you confused by the scenario, who have not been here historically and wondered why there was this awkward scenario, it would have been easy for Mr. Freed just to close his laptop, sure. But the reality is, what that would be doing is giving in to someone who has no further desire than to disrupt this meeting. Regardless of any way this council has tried to work with him, tried to move on from working with him.
Have you ever met with me? Yes or no?
Julian, this is the last time I'm going to ask you, please refrain from speaking to council at this time.
About me on public.
This is your final warning.
See you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
So I again want to thank you, Mr. Freed, because it's easy in that scenario to make it look like you think you're better than other people or something like that. And that's simply not the case. You're just an administrator doing your job. And as a council member, I appreciate that. The minute we start listening to the rantings of Julian's endless requests, we're in a rough scenario and unable to conduct a business meeting. So.
Anyone else?
Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to support what Jeff said, and I also support James. There's a lot, I know sometimes it seems like there was a comment a couple meetings ago that stay off your phones. There's times that I know I asked James a question about something on the agenda that I don't understand. If I don't ask 100 questions during the meeting, that's because he's giving me answers or I go to him prior. But I support what Jeff said also. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Ashford. Meeting is adjourned. You may now engage.